Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome. My name is Dawn Viascusa, and I'm the president of the second. Sorry, I got 3 people to let in here. Did you see them pop up, Kent?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can let them in. Great. All right. Okay, we'll start again. My name is Dawn Viascusa, and I'm the president of the Audubon Society of Lincoln City. And I'd like to welcome you and thank you all for joining us. And we are recording this presentation and information exchange, we're calling it. So just so you know, you'll be able to come back and watch and listen to it at a later time. Okay, my screen doesn't, there we go. Okay, this evening we want to talk about the Rocky Habitat Management Strategy. First of all, we'll give you a little bit of information about Lincoln City Audubon and what we're doing up in Tillamook County. The Rocky Habitat Management Strategy. Then we will talk about Cape Lookout, and Kent will give you some information on the history of Cape Lookout, and we'll talk about our proposal to have it designated as a marine conservation area. And then we will open it up and have a chat with you. We want to hear your thoughts and your ideas. What we would like to do as far as questions and answers go, I set it so that everybody was muted on entry, and we'd like you to keep yourself muted during the presentation portion. Feel free to go ahead and fire questions into the chat room. That will be fine. And we'll keep an eye on that and try to get to your questions right away. If not, we definitely will get to them when we get to the information exchange part of the program, so, or part of tonight's webinar. So, and then at that point in time, feel free to unmute yourself. We have a pretty small group so that we can have a pretty good information exchange after we get through the presentation piece. So. Okay, first of all, who are we? We are the Audubon Society of Lincoln City, and also known as Lincoln City Audubon. We were formed 15 years ago as a chapter of the National Audubon Society with the following goals. Education, to offer experiences in nature to children and adults who reside here or visit the coast. Citizen science, create an involvement of the local community in citizen science opportunities like shorebird monitoring and that type of thing. Conservation, initiate conservation projects to directly benefit birds, other wildlife, and habitats, and stimulate grassroots efforts on issues affecting the Central Oregon coast. Our service area as assigned to us by National Audubon is all of Lincoln and Tillamook counties. And you saw in the previous objectives, we kind of mistakenly called all of that Central Oregon coast, whereas Tillamook is, a lot of it is on the north coast, but forgive us for that. But our service area is 120 miles of coast, about a third of the coastline. So we are a volunteer-based nonprofit, 501c3 public charity. We have a board of directors of 10 persons right now. Our membership, we have about 150 members, and the dues that our memberships pay help to support our programs and keep our activities, for the most part, completely free of charge. We do our programs, our core programs are education, citizen science, and conservation. And if that sounds familiar, yes, those were the original objectives we started with 15 years ago, and those continue to be our core programs. About 3 years ago, we went through a strategic planning process, and in evaluating ourselves, felt like that, realized that we were placing most of our emphasis on education and the citizen science portion, and not as much on conservation. And so we regrouped, updated our strategies to more closely tie in with our mission, and formed a conservation action committee and set these priorities, conservation priorities: climate change, coastal habitat protection, which includes, of course, rocky habitat and estuaries, forest issues and clean water, marine reserves, and plastic pollution, or actually that probably should be marine debris. As you know, the state of Oregon has a long history of protecting our coastal habitat, protecting our natural resources. Oregon has an Ocean Policy Advisory Council that reports to the governor. The council is made up of representatives from communities, coastal communities, state agencies, conservation, the federated tribes, and the general public. And each of those has a standing position on that council. OPAC's role is to advise the governor, state agencies, state agencies and local governments on ocean policy and resource management matters. And OPAC oversees Oregon's Territorial Sea Plan. If you want to learn more about OPAC and Oregon's coastal management programs, go to oreganocean.info. Oregon's Territorial Sea Plan acts as a coordinated vision for Oregon's coastal resource and guides the actions of state, federal, and local agencies who are responsible for managing the coastal and ocean resources in the public trust. Excuse me. The Rocky Habitat Management Strategy that we've been alluding to is actually Chapter 3 of the Territorial Sea Plan. The purpose of the Rocky Habitat Management Strategy is to protect the ecological values and coastal biodiversity while allowing appropriate use. The Rocky Habitat Management Strategy includes an inventory of sites that are designated for protections up and down the coast, from all the way from the south all the way up to the north. Various categories of protections for specific sites. A few years ago, OPAC established a working group to update the strategy for the first time since 1994. So that working group has been functioning for 2 or 3 years to reevaluate and reassess both the strategy and the inventory, the site inventory in the strategy. The new process was adopted in May that enables the public to be involved in seeking protective site designations. So the working group made a decision to bring some of the 1994 sites forward in the new strategy, and they opened it up for additional sites or sites that were not brought forward to be proposed to be protected under one of 3 categories. Since coastal habitat is one of our key conservation priorities, we were excited to learn about this process and immediately became involved in learning more about it. We discovered that we wanted to actually assess our 2 counties and look for some protections at a couple of key sites that we felt like we had the bandwidth for. We were able to go out and seek some funding and hire a part-time, what we call campaign coordinator, to coordinate our efforts. To that end, we chose 2 sites, one in Lincoln County, one in Tillamook County. In Lincoln County, we are looking at the Cape Foulweather area, and in Tillamook County, as you could see, we are looking at Cape Lookout. And that was, we learned that Cape Lookout, which had been designated in 1994, was not going to be brought forward. And so, or it had been proposed for designation anyway. And so that was why we chose Cape Lookout in Tillamook. So before Kent talks about Cape Lookout, just a little bit more information about what we mean. One of the things that in addition to working on the strategy, one of the things that the working group was tasked with was defining rocky habitat. And the definition is now a little broader than it was in 1994, and that if you see me moving my cursor across here from right to left, it includes the rocky upland up to the vegetation line, the rocky shoreline, rocky intertidal, which is the part of the coast that of course is exposed during extreme low tides, the nearshore submerged rocky reefs, offshore rocky islands, and the far shore submerged rocky reefs. And just as you know, our territorial sea goes out to the 3-mile line, and so habitat designations can extend out that far, although very few of them go out much further than a half a mile. So why do we care about protecting rocky habitat? There are a number of reasons. One of them is that our kelp beds that we enjoy on our nearshore environments help to reduce coastal erosion and help mitigate the effects of climate change. Another reason is that one of the reasons that we live here and that visitors come here is to enjoy these rocky habitats that make up almost 1/3 of our coastline. Actually, almost half, I should say. Millions of visitors enjoy the tide pools, bird watching, and crabbing, and protecting those assets and managing access helps to preserve those for future visitors. In addition, the rocky intertidal and the rocky habitats provide food and shelter for birds, mammals, and other wildlife. And the biodiversity of the rocky habitat in the near shore helps to support the broader marine ecosystem. So a healthy rocky shore helps to ensure a rocky ocean. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kent. Kent Doty is our Coastal Habitat Campaign Coordinator, and he is the one who is working on our 2 proposals and coordinating our effort for those. So Kent, take it away.
Thanks, Dawn, for setting the stage with an overview of the Rocky Habitat Management Strategy. And I'm going to leave my video feed off because I live in the rural part of Tillamook County and our internet's sometimes a little slow. Cape Lookout is probably one of the most stunning rocky habitats on the Tillamook coast, and or Tillamook County, and for that matter on the entire coast. It extends about 1.5 miles out into the ocean, and it's an excellent representation of several coastal ecosystems, including its marine ecosystem. Here we're looking at the south side of the Cape, and I think if you're on this call, you'd probably agree that Cape Lookout is a pretty special place. Don mentioned it was designated in 1994. Similar, it wasn't as community-oriented process, and it was a little, but it was never implemented, so it's not part of the strategy now. A couple things that would provide protection with this designation. Right now, a mix of agencies manage and have authority over. Below the extreme low tide, it's Department of State Lands. The intertidal habitat from the low to the high is Oregon Park Recreation Department. In this case, since the state park, they also manage the uplands. Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, ODFW, has jurisdiction over harvesting and the fish and any shellfish. You can see it's a complicated management system. This designation essentially puts everybody on the same page, working collaboratively with the community also. So despite it being a state park and it's being designated also as an Oregon Natural Heritage Area, there is little to no protection for the habitat below mean high tide. And that's what this designation does. Next. Under the state park superintendent, Sam Boardman, Parks Division acquired the Cape Lookout State Park in 1935, a little history. Another 975 acres were deeded to the Parks Department from the U.S. Lighthouse Service. Over the years, the park continued to expand. And in the 60s, the road was built over the Cape to connect to the north and Sand Lake to the south. Sam Boardman described the 2000 Lookout State Park as one of Oregon's crown jewels, and I think I have to agree with him on that. Next. Originally, Boardman intended the Cape to be preserved as wildlife habitat with little human access. That's changed over the parks. The Lookout State Park management has changed over time and incorporated in campsite and day use, and seek to protect the resources, but also provide recreational enjoyment opportunities for camping. There's some great hiking trails for many people on. But the Cape does have some pretty amazing wildlife and natural resources. It's home to the largest colony of mainland common murres. It's crested cormorants, pelagic and Brandt's cormorants, pigeon emos, there's oyster catchers, bald eagles, and occasionally you can see a peregrine falcon. When you're on top of the Cape looking down, you can see gray whales swimming. Next. Our proposal area includes both the north side and the south side of the Cape. Our proposal area is what's shown in blue here. The original 1994 designation was only the south side of the Cape, but we believe that the entire rocky habitats for the entire Cape merit protection. It integrates they're quite different ecosystems, but there's seabird nesting colonies on both sides, seal haul outs. South side, there's a large beds, and down in the southern corner of it, close to Camp Merriweather, are boulder intertidal habitats and tide pooling areas. The marine protected area or marine conservation area that extent is about 200 meters offshore. What's in blue there includes intertidal and subtidal habitats. Next. So why a marine conservation area? As Don mentioned, there's in the Rocky Habitat Management Strategy, there's marine gardens, which are primarily public access. The traditional would be like the marine garden, research areas, and conservation areas. The goal of a conservation area is to conserve the natural ecosystem, sites of high ecological value. I think we'd all agree Cape Lookout has high ecological value by limiting adverse impacts to habitat and wildlife. One of the things this designation does is it's very flexible in its management, and it allows the management recommendations to be tailored to the ecological needs of the site as well as community interests. A few things. Okay. So what does our proposal entail? I'll wait till the slide comes back on.
Sorry about that. Having a little bit of a internet issue here.
But while we're bringing the slide presentation back up, resources that this designation protect, I mentioned that there's large seabird nesting colonies, intertidal habitats, kelp forests, that's used by whales feeding close into the Cape. There's some sea caves. There's haul out areas for seals and sea lions at the and essentially what this designation too would do is it integrates the upland protected areas with the intertidal and subtidal areas to manage as an entire ecosystem. So our management recommendations include improving protections for seabird breeding colonies, primarily through education and information flyers at nearby harbors and boat launches. Focus on community involvement, stewardship programs, community science. And one of the, Todd and Chris, it's great to see you both here tonight, because one of the things is we want to shape this proposal to support programs at Camp Merriweather. For those that don't know, Camp Merriweather is a Boy Scouts of America camp located just immediately south of the Cape, and they offer camping, environmental outdoor programs, and not only for Boy Scouts, but well, you could speak to it later, but about 1,000 kids per year go through the Tillamook Outdoor School program. So a lot of environmental ed programs, and I think there's a lot of compatibility between the camp's goals and objectives and the proposal. But one of the things it does is it protects the landscape too. That's valuable to our tourist economy. Next. So what does the recommendations do not do? We're not making any, the recommendations are for no change in commercial or coastal or recreational fish harvest regulations, coastwide harvest regulations. It would close harvest to some marine invertebrates, but those that are traditionally harvested, including clams, nest crab, red rock crab, mussels, pittocks, scallops, and sand crabs, those would remain open. So right now we're coming up on the deadline to get our proposals in. They're due at the end of this month. There's a lot that goes into a proposal. They're submitted to what's called the working group, which is a subset of OPAC, an online platform called CSCAT. That's a public forum. If any of you are interested in getting a little bit more, watching the process, it's a public forum that you can view how our proposals are shaped. And once it's submitted, it goes out for agency review. The federally recognized tribes also review it, give comment as to its feasibility, its completeness. That then comes back to the working group, which is a subset of the Ocean Policy Advisory. They make a recommendation to move a proposal forward or to not recommend it. Those in that package then will go out for public review. That'll probably happen sometime in February, where the working group makes a recommendation, and there's about a 30-day period. OPAC then this late spring, early summer will review the proposals that are being submitted. And it's just not our proposals. There's proposals down the coast that are being submitted. They will approve or deny proposals. They're then sent on to the Land Conservation and Development Commission, which then they have the final approval, but then it goes back out to the agencies for rulemaking into the commission. So you can see it's a long, complicated process. This flow chart here is probably about a 1.5 year process, and we're just coming up with proposals submitted. Next. So if you're interested in how to help tonight, we're looking for input, thoughts, ideas, questions, and have an open-ended discussion to hear your ideas about this proposal. There's also, we encourage you, if you want to support this, to send an email or support letter. My email's down at the bottom of the screen there. You can also contact our webpage. Don's has done a fantastic job of we've got a Facebook page, My Favorite Rocky Habitat. I encourage to post photos there, and it's a good way to stay up to date with emails from us. So with that, I think I'll go ahead and open it up for conversation. I see there's one chat in there now, and you can either post something down at the bottom of your screen. There's a chat button. You can type a question, or please unmute yourself and share your thoughts.
I have to unmute myself to read the question. So Jonathan is asking, would divers be able to harvest legal species inside the 200-meter boundary, including securing boat or kayaks?
Yes. Harvest of those species that I listed would be available for harvest. If you are a diver, are there other species that, and fishing regulations would be what's basically unchanged. If you could provide any additional information on other species that you're interested in, I'd be curious to hear.
Can you hear me? I just unmuted myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'm a diver. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Jonathan Whittles. I have said many times to people that care that south side of Cape Lookout is my favorite place on earth. And one of the reasons I moved back here about 20 years ago, I grew up here and been experiencing Cape Lookout for, well, since the 70s. Moved back here in 2002 to scuba dive out there almost every week that we could during the summertime with my father, who's on the chat here as well. And in the last 6 or 7 years, I've started doing breath hold diving and things like that. But I'm also a dory fisherman and enjoy, well, it's not a fun boat ride all the way up from Cape Kiwanda, 45 minutes of pounding in the ocean to get up there. But once you're up there, it's a beautiful place. And so probably everybody on the call is very interested in keeping that place the way it is now. You know, as I heard lots of, you know, I'm new to this process, and I heard a question, or I heard mentioned several times the word protection. And what comes to mind is protection from what? The Cape Lookout is an absolutely very difficult place to get to for people. Surfers have to haul all their gear from the top, you know, 400 foot down, or walk in at least 3 miles from where the lookout, or the dune management area. Can't drive along the beach there. So either walk in there, come down from the top, and it's, I mean, young surfers do it, but old ones don't. And for diving, the only way there is a surf launch, which is quite dangerous, or you've got a long boat ride either from Netarts or up from Cape Kiwanda. in terms of the normal tourist type traffic, you know, you have some that comes down from the very end of the Cape on the trail that sneak their way down to where the cave is. It's not an easy go there, and I don't think a lot of people do it. And the bigger sea lion haul outs are on the north side there, not on the south side. But anyway, yeah, I am concerned that the word protection, protect from what, and does that allow all the recreation that we've enjoyed for the last 40 years that a very few people, I might add, get to enjoy because of how hard it is to get there, whether all that will still be allowed. And in terms of species, your rock scallops, which I think you mentioned, the black rockfish and lingcod, which is normal bottom fish harvest in that area. And you mentioned kelp beds. The bigger threat to kelp beds right now is just was out there, I don't know, 4 weeks ago or so, and the purple sea urchins have just absolutely decimated the kelp beds like I've never seen it in the last 15 years. But anyway, I'll leave it at that.
And those are really good bits of information and good feedback for us. Using the word protection is probably not it's not an ideal word. What we're seeking to do is primarily focus on education to preserve the site. So we're not looking to stop the harvest or stop the people from surfing or the kayakers who visit the sea cave. Or what we're looking to do is educate them about the value of, for instance, the seabird colonies. There is an increased use of drones and paragliding on the north side. And so I think one of the main reasons that it was not actually implemented in 1994 was due exactly to what you're mentioning, which is the lack of real access. But with new technology and new things happening, there are more people accessing it now than ever were before, and they're doing things that weren't dreamed of back in 1994. Like I said, the paragliding and the drone usage. And so our emphasis is on seeking to a couple of things. One of them is educating through signage, through community service messaging, information pamphlets placed at tourist locations that would be feeding into that spot. And then the other one is the stewardship, monitoring programs and that kind of thing, so that we're watching what's happening there and keeping track of the changes that are occurring, including ones like the kelp beds being devastated by the purple sea urchin and things like that, and then looking at ways the community can become involved in mitigating that in some way. So yeah, protection makes it sound like we're seeking to set up a bunch of rules so that people have to stop doing what they're doing, and that's not really what we're about. And so protection, isn't a good word.
Yeah, the choice of a conservation area, actually one of the drivers for us was that it allows us the flexibility and management recommendations to keep harvests open. But there's not a lot of fishing pressure there, and I think the people that are going are going for a unique experience.
Yeah. So yeah, those are really good points, Jonathan. Thank you very much for that feedback.
You bet.
Anybody else have any thoughts or ideas or expertise to lend us or anything? And of course, this isn't, I mean, yeah, we're on a fairly short line, but even after the first of the year, once our proposal is submitted, you will still have opportunities to input into the process. Like Kent mentioned in our little diagram that we showed you, there will be at least 2 public comment opportunities. And we really are seeking, if you feel like you can support our proposal, we will be seeking people at that time to help testify in support of our proposal. So, and of course, you can also sign a letter of support right now if you wanted to. So,
hi, Dawn. This is Lene Rutledge.
hi, Lene.
Hi. I just posted a comment on the chat. My husband and I live in Territorial, and that's south of Cape Lookout. And we've been coming to the Tillamook North County area and North Coast area for years and years. And we love Cape Lookout. In some ways, it's been loved to death by the numbers of people that hike, but it's still, as everyone knows, it is just the most pristinely beautiful place that I can imagine. And wanting to protect it is, I think, really important. I've been involved in the issues that we've had with Facebook, which is doing an industrial drilling project in Territorial. And I think anything that we can do to add language about protection because of the importance of that area is really time well spent. I understand the issues on the other side of that you don't want to restrict people from being able to do the things that they have been historically able to do, and especially the habitat, obviously. But I would just encourage us to continue to think in terms of who are those big corporate interests who might decide that the areas that we hold near and dear to ourselves as being pristine aren't necessarily, from their perspective, a place that they're willing to protect. So, but as a Territorial, Tillamook County registered voter, very active in our community, please know that I'm going to support the work that is being done because I love Cape Lookout. So thank you.
Thank you, Lene. And that does bring up a good point about future potential changes at Cape Lookout being a consideration. And I'm sorry, Lene, I had missed that you had put a question in chat, so thank you for unmuting yourself and speaking up. I appreciate that.
I will always do that. No worries. Thank you.
Good. So.
I have another question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, in light of your explanation of not restricting the types of activities that historically have gone on there, just one small comment. You know, my dad, I don't know if he ever flew off of there, but was a hang glider pilot in this area, and that's been going on since the 70s. So that's been going on a long time. I absolutely do agree with you on the drone is a very new thing and allows, you know, I don't know what the studies show of how that affects a bird when you fly within 10 feet of his nest with a drone, but so that might be something that would need to be looked at, very new and growing in popularity. But I would be interested in that 200-meter boundary. What does that then mean? It's not a boundary, it defines the area that you're trying to that you're trying to say this is the area that we want to educate more about.
Yeah, it's defining an area. It's not going to be a regulatory boundary. like with marine reserves, where it's a regulatory boundary of exclusion within it. This is more kind of a man, just for find the area that's going to be managed, and basically it's not so much, as I mentioned, it allows agencies to have a little bit more focus on site-specific objectives and manage it focus that way. Things like you mentioned, the purple sea urchin. Right now, ODFW manages the fisheries and the shellfish, the Department of State Lands, the kelp beds. So sometimes things like sea urchin explosions get missed until they gone too far. It's hard to turn them around. And this would be an opportunity to have monitoring in place so that those kind of things can be addressed early on.
It provides a vehicle for some more coordinated efforts, interagency efforts, and it also incorporates community involvement in the agency process, which to us is one of the best things about it. So.
Thank you.
Jonathan, you have probably you have firsthand knowledge of what it looks like underwater there. Does 200 meters capture most of the rocky reef habitat? I mean, as it's mapped, it does.
Yeah, certainly. If you were diving at the 200 meter away from the face on the south side, you'd probably be in sand for the most part. You would not be still in the boulder area.
Okay. Okay. So,
That may not exactly be correct in certain places that are deeper than I want to dive. But yeah, out towards the end, I have no idea what it looks like at 120 feet.
And actually on the south side, the area that we've mapped in runs at the edge of the reef, so it's a little less. But on the north side, there's not a reef system offshore.
you're cutting out, Kent.
No.
So, Steve, I'm going to skip over you just for a minute. Joe Yoren is with us, and he's one of our project team members. And he says protect from is not really the idea. Protect for might be a better way of phrasing it. Preserve's probably even better. Preserving habitat is the goal. So fish and wildlife are key elements of what makes the terrain so special. Diving and kayaking without wildlife would be a much less special endeavor. So thank you, Joe. That's a good point. And I'm having real computer problems here. I'm sorry. Okay, then Amy Dowd. Hello, welcome, Amy. I just want to say I'm very grateful for these efforts on the proposal, and you have my 100% support. Thank you for the helpful suggestions on how to support this process. I'm also supportive of continuing to allow recreation and investment in education on the unique habitats. So great, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, and we're right at the 45 minutes. I promised a 45-minute webinar. So, however, if you want to stick around and chat a little bit more, we'll be happy to do that as well. So, anybody else? Any more comments or questions? Okay, well, check out our website. Email us, email Kent at kentd@lincolncityaudubon.org. And if you want to write a letter or send an email supporting our project, or if you just want to provide maybe some more comments or thoughts that you think that we haven't considered, please do that and contact Kent, and he'll get it to our whole core team. So thank you. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks everybody for being on here. And Chris, I'll probably be getting in touch with you, talk a little bit now as we're getting the recommendations refined of how to fit in with your programs. And thank you, Jonathan, so much for your input. It's particularly valuable.
Yes, extremely valuable. Thank you so much. All right, thank you all. And we will be in touch probably. Thanks. Bye.